3 of the NBA Finals, featuring the Golden State Warriors and the Boston Celtics. Our third co-host will be joining us shortly. He just handling some business right now. But Chaz, I wanted to begin with Steph Curry. Now, Steph Curry right now is the odds-on favorite to win NBA Finals MVP at minus 105. Now, over the last 2 games, we've seen Curry go for 34 and 29. Game 2, he was 9 for 21 from the field, 5 for 12 from 3. So he wasn't, it wasn't as efficient as we've grown accustomed to seeing Steph Curry. He was 12 for 25 in game 1 when he scored 34 points. And a lot of that had to do with that, that first quarter where he scored 21 points.
Right. What did he finish from the 3-point line in that first game? He was 7 of what?
I think he was 7. I want to say 7 for 11.
Okay, yeah, because he started off like 6 or 7. I can't remember what he finished, but
I want to say 7. I could be wrong. We would check that, folks. But I think he was like 7 for 10, 7 for 11. He shot pretty good from the 3. He didn't really miss that much. I think he missed about 4 or 5 shots. Have we seen the best of Steph Curry in these finals?
I mean, we've seen a pretty good Steph Curry, but I wouldn't say it's the best yet. I want to get your take on that too. I think there's a little bit room, for more to do, especially talking, that first game where we did see him have a drop off, in second quarter, and then especially in that fourth quarter. But I mean, he's been really good. I feel like he's been, like you said, he's the odds-on favorite for the Finals MVP. But to me, he's been clearly the best player, of anybody in this series. But with that said, I still feel like he could do a little bit more. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if, in one of these 2 games in Boston, he goes for like 40. And I mean, as good as he has played in these first 2 games, that would be a little bit more that we haven't quite seen yet. I mean, he had, you said he had 29 in that, game 2 win, and he didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. So he very easily could have had that game, if it came down to the wire or something. So, I think there's a little bit more, maybe he needs to play that complete game. He didn't really do it in game 1, but what do you think? Because I feel like there's a little bit of room for it, but we've already seen him at such a high level that it's hard to ask him to do more.
Well, we're expecting him to do something that we've accustomed to seeing him do in a regular season, that want to be transferred into the NBA Finals. And for the people that keep telling me, and for people that keep telling us, quite frankly, that Steph doesn't perform well in the NBA Finals, he has one of the highest finals averages in NBA history. He scores over 26. Yeah, that's just false. He scores over 26 points in the NBA Finals. I'm going to say the same point again. He has a higher finals average than Kobe, Kareem, and Dwayne Wade. So this notion that he hasn't played well in the NBA Finals is just not true. I have to fact check the Kareem, but I'm pretty sure Kareem is on that list. But he has a higher finals average than those all-time great players. 21 shots to me is right where he needs to be. I don't think he needs to shoot, another 29, 20, 30 times. And a lot of people saying the all-time greats haven't shot that much in the NBA Finals. You're not watching basketball if you don't think that's the case. When LeBron James was playing in the NBA Finals in 2015, he shot the ball 30 times in one game. So, I mean, you're just stating incorrect facts at this point. I do think Steph has another level to go to. I think he's played well in these NBA Finals. I wouldn't say he's played great.
You wouldn't?
No, I think he could shoot better, but you have to understand that the volume of which he shoot and his size, quite frankly, he's 6'3", 6'2". The things that he's able to do at that size, a lot of people are not supposed to do that anyways. It reminds me of Allen Iverson. At that size, you're not supposed to be able to dominate the game the way you do. So he's already started from a disadvantage. So the fact that Kevin Durant, the fact that, that all-time great player, he couldn't average 30 against this team, and Steph Curry is averaging 31.5. It just shows you how great he is. And if he continues this path and he wins NBA Finals MVP, he's going to have to put on these type of games. He's going to have to go for 34, maybe 40. He's going to average over 30 in these NBA Finals if they were to win, because that's what he has to do at this point. So I think there's more for him to give in these situations. But I will preference that point on saying if he has more help, it makes the game so much easier for him. If Klay Thompson, who we're going to get into a little bit later, if he's able to come out of his shooting slump, if Jordan Poole, who also we're going to get into a little bit later, is able to, play how he played at the, in the third and the fourth quarter of that game before halftime, quite frankly, if he's able to play like that, the remaining of the series, that opens the floor for Curry. Now he's able to attack. Now he's able to move freely. And I expect Boston to change their defense on him to make it a little tougher. So how that turns out, we've yet to see. But I think Steph still has another level that he can reach. I still think he has a 40 ball that he's going to be able to display in these NBA finals when it's all said and done.
Do you think that he needs to reach that level for them to win, or is it more about, those other guys that you just mentioned?
I think Steph playing at this level that he's at now, they could win.
I think so too.
But I also believe if no one else continues to come to the party, he's going to have to do more.
Okay.
So if he gets this level of consistency from, if he gets this level of consistency from someone like Andrew Wiggins and Looney, if they continue to play like they've played in that Dallas series and that Memphis series with that type of defense, and Wiggins give you anywhere from between 15 to 20 points on the offensive end, and Looney give you anywhere from between 10 to 14 boards, then you're able to get this level of Steph Curry, and it may be able to propel you to winning. But if you have Klay Thompson, I think he shot, 4 for 19 in game two. If you have Klay Thompson continuing to shoot that way, I don't think the Warriors win this series. Mm-hmm. But if Klay can shoot, I don't know, if he can shoot 6 for 13, 6 for 14, if he just makes that shooting percentage a little better, it splits the floor so much already when he's making shots that is going to make life easier for Steph. So I do think if all is even right now and everyone continues to play the way that they're playing, I think the Warriors can still win. But if Klay Thompson continues not to show up to party, and that's going off the assumption that Jayson Tatum continues to play like this. If Jayson Tatum is playing at an all-star and all-world player that we think he is, then the Warriors are going to need the others to play better. So if everything is at neutral as it is right now, I think the Warriors, with Steph playing like this, will win. That's going on an assumption that Jayson Tatum is going to play like this. That's going to go on an assumption that Al Horford is going to be mediocre, which I don't think he will. Marcus Smart is going to continue to, not shoot the ball well. So that's based on the assumption that everything is the way that it is right now.
No, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I feel like if Steph played exactly like he did in game 1 and game 2, the Warriors have a very good chance to win it. But it's just hard when he has to do that, when he's relied on to go get 35 or 40 points because nobody else is stepping up, because nobody else is really taking that second scoring role. I mean, you don't want, I still feel like, they could win it if he had to do that. They could win it if he continues to play like he did in game 1 and game 2. But when he's forced to do it, it makes it a lot harder. I mean, the Celtics are kind of banking on Klay and Jordan Poole, one of them not having a good game almost every single game. Yeah. And those guys have proven that. I mean, they haven't been able to get clicking at the same time in these first 2 games. And that's really helped the Celtics, especially in that game 1. So, I mean, to go back to Steph, I feel like, I think he has a little bit more of an extra gear. I think we'll probably see it at one point in this series. I think he probably does go get 40, maybe one game, but I definitely see him, sticking with averaging 30 plus, shooting 42% from 3, which I think he is right now. I think he's going to do that for the entire series.
Yeah. Would this be Steph not looking at the numbers? Because obviously if he wins his finals, he will average the most that he's ever averaged in NBA finals. Mm-hmm. But would you say this would be Steph's best title if he was able to beat the Celtics? Looking at Cleveland Cavaliers and then looking, with Steph and Durant, would you say this is Steph's most impressive title? Do you weigh this as, obviously a championship is a championship, but would you weigh this title a little more higher than you do the others?
I don't know that if I would weigh it any higher than the others, but I think there is a good argument to say that, it might be the one that is kind of valued a little bit more just because Kevin Durant isn't there, it's not as easy. You're not winning it in 4 or 5 games, where you feel like you're the much better team. It's not like that. I think most people believe that these two teams are pretty neck and neck,
Yeah,
and that each team could win this series. It's a lot more, like that first Warriors run where they won it over the, Cavaliers, where both teams were kind of trying to figure it out, where people didn't know who was going to win that. But, that one was over somebody like LeBron, where it's always good to kind of take down, the king of the NBA, and you don't really have that case right now. Plus, obviously, that one was the first one, which I feel like has to kind of, hold a special moment, for all these guys. So, I don't know how it would weigh, next to each other, but I know that after the Kevin Durant era, it definitely feels good to be back on top, which, the Warriors are just a few wins away from doing.
Yeah, I believe that this title, again, I wouldn't say outweighs any of them, because I think the title is a title, and it's something about winning the first title that is so special. Like all the players of all time has said, that first one, getting over that hump initially, it's kind of, it's kind of the best feeling. But to me, I think this title will outweigh anything that he's done with Kevin Durant, because now this singles him out. You say, I won with Kevin Durant, I won before Kevin Durant, I won one after Kevin Durant. So this, to me, and we're going to get into this all summer, folks, because we're going to have, draft shows. We're going to get you ready for free agency. We're going to get you ready for everything. So
we'll have a lot of legacy talk.
So to me, this elevates him past Kevin Durant if he's not already there. To me, he's already at that point where he's past Kevin Durant. But another title, to me, I don't think you can ever make the argument that Kevin Durant is better than Steph Curry if he was to win one without him. So it's going to be fun to see what happens over, the next week and a half. But Steph Curry, if he's able to capture another championship and a Finals MVP, I think we're having a completely different discussion of where he ranks on the all-time ranking. And I also believe that the level that we've seen from Curry this series, it can be ticked up another level. But I think we both agree in that stance. You are listening to the Spoken Truth Podcast live on YouTube. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and our Spotify account. All you gotta do is type in Spoken Truth Podcast in your search engine. As we continue getting you guys ready for Game 3 of the NBA Finals, I want to turn our focus to the Boston Celtics. Now, their star, Jayson Tatum, hasn't, played particularly well in these NBA Finals. He had a good first game, but he struggled on offense. Game 2, he came around on the offensive end, but he really struggled in other aspects of the game. So what I wanted to ask is what do we expect from Jayson Tatum in this game 2? This game 3.
Yeah, I feel like you have to expect, a 30-plus point game from him, really. And not only that, the scoring, but he has to kind of play a complete game. We saw him play. I actually think he played really well in that first game. He didn't shoot well at all, but I thought he played well. He was making the right decision a lot of the time.
I think he played well. I think he played okay in game 1. He just didn't particularly shoot the ball well, but right. He did everything else. He hasn't put the full package together in a game. Offense, defense, assisting, rebounding. He hasn't put a complete game together in these finals yet.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like you said, I thought he played well, for the most part in that game, just didn't shoot well. And then game 2, he shot really well, especially in that first half. For the game, he was 6 of 9 from 3. He really got going in those first 2 quarters and then really tailed off after that. But, as far as a complete game, we have not seen him, that from him in this series. We've seen it a lot during the playoffs. So I feel like he does need one of those type of games. If the Celtics want to win tonight, he needs to go for 30 plus. He needs to be probably creating 6 to 7 assists. In that game 1, he had 13 assists. He also had, 19 passes that led to quality shots. And then I think that dropped all the way down to 4 last game. So he was obviously looking for his shot, which is what you want him to do. But I also think that you need him to be making the right call, the right decision a lot of the time. And I don't necessarily think he was doing that every time down in that game too.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys are just joining us, we are getting you ready for game 3 of the NBA Finals. I wanted to go back to segment 1 that we had and wanted to confirm that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's his average is 23.6 in the NBA Finals. So indeed, Steph Curry has a higher finals average than Kareem. But
while we are going back to that real quick too, I just
mm-hmm.
saw that Steph's first player ever to have 5+ 3-point field goals in game 1
yes.
and game 2 in the finals. So I mean, we're talking about him going to another level, and he's already doing historic things. So I mean, that just goes to show how good of a player he is.
Absolutely. But to touch on what you were saying is I do think Jayson Tatum, has another level. So right now he's averaging 20 points in this series on a 31% field goal, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists. So that field goal percentage is just horrific. So shooting 31%, obviously he has another level that he can reach. And we all saw what he was able to do against the Brooklyn Nets. And we also saw what he was able to do against Giannis. He played tremendous in those series. What is the difference? This question is not on our rundown, but I'm very curious. And this happens a lot where we ask questions that's not on our rundown. What is the difference from those series, to now? I know it's the finals, but what is the difference between playing, 3, I would say, equal players and Steph, KD, and Giannis, but this Golden State team is giving you more fits than those other teams, I would say.
I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, to start off, I would have to give credit to Andrew Wiggins. I mean, I feel like he's done a phenomenal job these first 2 games. You mentioned who he was going up against in those first 3 series, but he wasn't necessarily being guarded by those guys. Giannis was not guarding him a lot of the time. Neither was Kevin Durant. So, Jimmy Butler more was, but he was also guarding a lot of different guys. So I feel like Tatum had more space. Wiggins has been up in him a lot. But then I also would say I feel like Tatum is playing, with a little bit less confidence, a little more tight than usual. I feel like we need to see him have a little more freedom.
Is it the finals? Do you think it's the finals or?
I feel like that has to be part of it. I'm not saying, he's nervous or anything like that, but I just feel like, when you have a bad shooting night like that, it's probably just because you're just pressing just a little bit. I mean, he was getting good shots, but they just weren't going down. So I feel like he's just maybe overthinking just slightly. That's something that after you get 2 games under your belt and you're going home, maybe you're able to shake that off. So I feel like, I'm expecting to see a pretty good night tonight and probably in game 4.
Yeah. I'm expecting him to play well. Potentially with the remaining of the series if it goes 7. So, for at least 5 more games. But I'm curious to see how that affects the others. I'm curious to see how that affects Horford, Williamson. I'm curious to see how that affects everyone coming off the bench. Because if he's going like that, he's taking shots away from others. In game 1, we saw just an avalanche from the others. On Boston, we saw the others be able to propel them to winning that game 1, practically stealing home court advantage from the Warriors. It wasn't necessarily just Tatum, as technically they stole home court advantage, but they took it. I would say they took it. They didn't steal it, but
I think the Warriors will take it back pretty quick.
Yeah, but he didn't play particularly well. But again, we talked about that. I think he had 13 assists. But I think he had 12 points, but I believe he had more turnovers than he did points in the game 1. I have to check that too, but I think that's the case.
Yeah, he did have 12 points, I think, right?
Yeah, I think he had almost half of turnovers than he had points. I think he had 6 or more turnovers or so. But I do think that he can play well or better than what he's played right now in this series. And I expect him to, because they're going to need him to play at an all-star, all-NBA level in order for them to win this series. Now, obviously, I think Jaylen Brown makes the difference in this series when it comes to, if you're talking strictly on the Boston Celtics side, because if he goes, even if Jayson Tatum has an off night here and there, he's able to carry the load if he's going and others are. But if you're expecting Jayson Tatum and the Celtics to win this series, they're going to need him to score 25, 30 points. You're not beating the Warriors as a one-man band. Jaylen Brown is not going to be able to do the job. You're going to need a collective unit from Boston in order for them to beat this Warriors team.
So what do you think is more important for Tatum? Obviously, the goal is to play an even game, where you're scoring and distributing for others. But what do you think is more important? Is it him getting his own, or is it him setting up those other guys? Because, with Marcus Smart and Al Horford not doing that scoring that they did in game one, I feel like that was just as big of a difference as Tatum struggling in game one.
I agree, but I do think Jayson Tatum needs to find his shot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he shot a great percentage from three in two, but his mid-range and his 2-point shot was just abysmal.
Yeah.
So it's not like he isn't making shots. I just think it's a comfort level. I don't think he's comfortable yet in this situation. And I know he's very young. So, his first finals experience, he's a young guy. So I get the nerves and everything. That it kind of reminds me of Jordan Poole. I think Jordan Poole, 20 years old. I mean, sometimes the lights are too bright, but if you're that guy and you're leading this organization, you have to play better. So I think it's just as important getting him involved as the others. Yeah. He's going to have to be able to do both. It can't just be him going and then all of the others are still suffering, because you cannot beat the Warriors on a 1-man or 2-man band. You just can't do it. So he has to get going, but he also needs to figure out, maybe I need to get 7-8 assists. And we know the Celtics don't really have a traditional point guard. Marcus Smart is masquerading out there as a point guard. He's not a point guard. So, being able to play the role of a point guard and, getting those assists, getting those rebounds, he needs to have an overall type of performance in order for them to win this game 3. So maybe something around 25 points, 25 to 30 points, maybe around 7 or 8 assists, maybe 8 or 9 rebounds. He needed to have close to a triple-double, all-around performance in order for them to come out with a win, in my opinion, in the game 3.
Yeah, I think that's the type of performance that they're looking for from him. Obviously, they can win if he does other things. If he tried to go for 40, they might win that game. Or if he struggles like he did in game 1, but he's so good at dribble driving and setting up others, they could win that. But I mean, the perfect type of game for him is just what you said, where he's getting near 30 points and he's right around 7 or 8 assists. Because I mean, that just gets your offense going in so many different ways, that I feel like they could beat the Warriors again if he's at that level.
Yeah. And speaking of the Celtics role players, we wanted to dive into how do we think they're going to play at home. Now, obviously, they played all world, led by Al Horford in game 1 to be able to take home, be able to get, I only keep saying take home court advantage, but technically they did, they took home court advantage. As we get ready for the NBA Finals, if you're watching, I don't know what they continue to do to this rim, but I guess the Warriors complained about it.
It looks like they got it set now, right?
Yeah, but it's something must have just rim due to the Warriors complained about it. I guess it was 2 inches higher than the other one.
Oh, okay. That's a significant difference.
Definitely is. Like, how do you make that type of mistake? But continuing to our topic, as we are less than an hour away from game 1 of the NBA Finals, game 3. So the Boston Celtics and their role players, what do you expect from them, being, going to Golden State, San Francisco, a hostile environment, splitting the series 1-1, coming back, and you're hosting the NBA Finals game for the first time since 2010. And the crowd and TD Garden is going to be hyped. What are you expecting from the others on that Boston Celtics team?
I'm expecting them to play good. We always talk about how, those type of role players play better at home, but we've also talked about how, the Celtics haven't necessarily been a better team when they're at home. So that is kind of something that I'm trying to consider, because, Grant
2 losses to Milwaukee. Sorry. And then 2 losses to Miami.
Yeah. And I mean, Grant Williams played really good in that series, against Milwaukee, but then he hasn't been as good late. Derek White, I feel like he has been very good in these first 2 finals games. So, I think out of those guys like Al Horford, Grant Williams, Derek White, Robert Williams, and Peyton Pritchard, they probably need at least half, if not 4 out of 5 of those guys to play well, to be making good decisions, to be knocking down open shots. When they get that, even if Tatum isn't at that level, then I feel like they have a good shot to win. But I mean, in game 2, Smart and Horford combining for 4 points. Horford didn't have a shot attempt, I think, until the second half. He shot no 3-pointers after making 6 in the first game. So, I mean, it was such a drastic difference between game 1 and game 2 for those type of guys. They need to be back to what they were, close to what they were in game 1, I feel like, to have a good shot tonight.
Mm-hmm. It does, because we all know that Williams, he's not 100%. Robert Williams is not 100%.
He's not. Yeah.
Do you think that has an effect, especially because now this series to me has always been a pick 'em, but now it's 1-1. It's the best of 5, and he's that defensive anchor on that Boston Celtics team. How big or how significant is that potential injury to him, going to affect the team? And we know he's going to play, but clearly he's not 100%.
Yeah, it's obvious when he's out there. He doesn't have near the same impact that he had, in the regular season when they were playing at their peak. Mm-hmm. He was a huge part of that. He was in the race for Defensive Player of the Year. He was making big blocks, switching out onto everybody, on a nightly basis. He's not really doing that right now. I feel like, he's kind of floating around. He's not always in the right place. He's going for a lot of pump fakes. He's kind of, undisciplined, I feel like, right now. And a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that he is hurt, that he is, in discomfort a lot of the time. It's hard to play with an injury, especially in this type of situation. But I mean, I feel like at this point that they're playing better when they go small anyways. So that probably is what they're going to do in a lot of second halves. But that does take away a lot, of what they can do on that defensive end.
Yeah. Do you think we've seen the best of these role players in game 1? Do you think it's more to come? Or should I say, do they have to resemble a game 1 in order for them to win this series?
I wouldn't say they have to get all the way to that game 1 level. I mean, Horford, Horford, Smart, and White combined.
He was the leading scorer. Horford was the leading scorer.
Yeah, they combined for 60 almost, I believe.
Yes.
Those 3 guys in that first game. I mean, I don't think they need to do that. That's asking a lot from role players and one bench guy. But if they could kind of split the difference between that game 1 and game 2 performance, and everybody has between 10 and 15 points, and maybe one of them goes for a little bit more than that, and they're all making good decisions and whatnot, then I feel like they could definitely win this game. Do you think that they have to be all the way where they were in that game 1? I feel like that's a lot to ask.
Not necessarily, but I do think they have to obviously perform better than they performed in game 2.
Yeah.
2 points for Horford. Marcus Smart virtually a no-show, both of them. I do think they have to perform better on their home court. But for some reason, Boston tends to not play great. I don't know if it's the fan base. I don't know if it's because it's the pressure, but they tend to not play great when they're at home, quite frankly. And to me, if I'm a Celtics fan and I'm rooting for this team, we're at the height of pressure right now in these NBA finals. So if we're not performing well, when we're playing Miami and we're playing Milwaukee, how do you expect us to perform when we're playing in the NBA finals against a 3-time champion in Steph, Clay, and Draymond? So I think the pressure for them to not play as great as they played in game 1, just not as bad as they played in game 2. I think it needs to be a balance there. I'm not saying Al Horford needs to lead everyone in scoring for the Boston Celtics. I'm not saying that they have to combine for 60 points that they combined in game 1. I'm saying there needs to be a balance between their bench production and their starters. If they're able to do that, then this game 3 should come down to the wire, because again, I think these are even matched teams. But when you have one particular team in their bench is not performing to a level that you expect, then it becomes a blowout. Then it becomes you're up by 20. Then the Warriors start raining threes on you. And then it's virtually impossible for them to come back at that particular moment. Versus when we saw in game 1, the Warriors made their runs and their spurts. I still believe they didn't play particularly well in that game 1. I think Steph Curry had a great first quarter, but outside of him, no one else really showed up to the party. We saw them able to withstand that onslaught because no one else was performing, and able to rise to that occasion in the fourth quarter, outscoring Golden State 40-16. So we're able to see what they can do per se when their backs against the wall. Well, you're going into your territory, where you got all the rest in the world, where you're able to have home cooked meals, everything to prepare for this game. So now we're able to see how they perform on their home court in the highest pressured situation. And to me, that's going to be exciting to see. We are now welcoming in our third co-host, Tunde. We're just touching on right now Boston bench, their production. I want to get your take on what do you think we should see in the game? What do you think we should expect in Game 3 of these finals?
First of all, this man just said, this man said you get home cooked meals when you playing at home. He said,
"Oh, absolutely. You better make these shots. That makes you play a little better. I have to believe if your mom preparing you a home cooked meal you have sleeping in your own bed. I mean, that means something."
He said, "You got mashed potatoes, motherfucker. You better hit this ketchup three in the corner."
You can't tell me it's not something different about home cooked meals you can't tell me. Like, I can try to resemble anything my mother makes and it don't taste the same. But when I go home, oh yeah, it's not the same. Even if I'm in my own place right now in Michigan, going back to Ohio, it's just something different. Like, you're at home. Like,
nah, I feel you there. There's fun fact about me in my spare time, I actually really do love to cook. I get down with a lot of different very fun recipes. I think the biggest crowd pleaser I have, I make ice cream homemade, and people, it's like I think the best thing that I do. But it is.
He's gloating now, Chaz.
No, I know we're very off topic now. I know, but there's some things I can't quite replicate. It's like it's not even like ingredients that I don't have. It's like. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like the person that
just that personal touch, yeah.
Yeah, mm-hmm. It's the personal touch. I feel you. So we talked about Boston's bench. I think that's an interesting topic for tonight. I'm really interested in seeing how they manage these rotations. And in particular, I think it's pretty inevitable in this series that Boston goes small at some point. Oh, I almost forgot. Sorry. But I think it's pretty inevitable that Boston goes small at some point in this series. And I think when they go small, we're going to see a little bit more of Grant Williams. And then we'll see a little bit less Robert Williams. It's partially because of the knee. He clearly can't move the way he wants to. And then I think when they do decide to go small, Daniel Tice is probably more or less going to get cut out of the lineup. I think it's a matter of when, not if, they do all of that. But I'm curious to see whether it comes tonight or whether we get that adjustment in Game 4 or 5.
But isn't that their advantage they have over the Warriors is the size? Like, again, this plays into the Warriors' hands. And I've said in previous episodes, even in season 1, that the Warriors, I don't know a single team that makes you adjust to them more than the Warriors. To me, I think Boston going small to try to match the Warriors is them adjusting to the Warriors. I think Boston needs to play their game. They have the size advantage. They have the length. They have the defense. They have everything to outmatch the Warriors in those categories. So why would you obviously go small to match them? I'm curious.
I feel like – go ahead, Tunde.
The short answer to that is that Robert Williams is playing on one leg, and that if you look
we were just talking about him and how he's not 100%.
If you look at the Warriors starting lineup, they keep trying to kind of adjust the point to which who they have Robert Williams guard. It's tough to have him guard Draymond, and you want Robert Williams on a quote unquote non-scoring threat, so you can kind of that he doesn't really have to guard them, right? So you would immediately think Draymond Green, but because of the passing, it's hard to do that because they're just going to involve Draymond in a lot of the primary actions. You're going to bring Draymond out, maybe. And we saw this in Game 2, especially run a lot more pick and roll, and then Robert Williams is out guarding pick and rolls instead of being able to, offer the rim protection that he does. Mm-hmm. So then you can't really do that. you obviously Klay Thompson isn't really an option. They tried having him on Andrew Wiggins. That doesn't really work. I think, Gary Payton, because of the disadvantages that the Warriors have on defense, Gary Payton II is going to have to play for the Warriors. And if I were the Celtics, I think I'd match up a lot of Time Lord's minutes. That's Robert Williams, by the way. I'd match up a lot of Time Lord's minutes with Gary Payton's minutes.
He's bringing out government. Is that his government name?
What?
Is that his government name?
Oh, Robert Williams?
Yeah.
Time Lord? Nah. Okay. So Time Lord is a nickname from his rookie year. Basically, he showed up late to his introductory press conference into like a practice or two. And some weird ass people on Twitter started calling him Time Lord because of his penchant for being late to things, and the nickname stuck. And so
I was about to say, Chaz, your thoughts, Chaz. Last point.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about Robert Williams. I feel like they are better, with him. But when he's playing, right now where he's obviously in discomfort, and the fact that Derek White is playing better, I feel like them going small is more about their team than trying to match up with the Warriors. I mean, with the way Derek White is playing, I do feel like it's worth a shot. I mean, Robert Williams is clearly impacted right now. He's so good at switching out on the perimeter, but when you're injured and you're going against somebody where you're getting switched on to Steph Curry, it's going to make that, 10 times worse. So, I mean, I feel like, you have him out there tonight, you give him a shot, but it's probably going to be, you go small, in closing minutes, or if one of those guys like Tunde, like you said, Grant Williams or Derek White are playing well, then you can put that, you can put that in that fifth spot.
Yeah. The other thing is that Al Horford is like, Al Horford is a 4/5, and for quote unquote smaller lineups, which like you're not really giving up a ton of size if you're the Celtics, honestly. You're 6'8" and 6'6" on the wing / guard spots with Tatum and Brown, and Grant Williams is more than adequate to play the 4. Like Al Horford is totally capable of being a center and is still gives you, rim protection, and more importantly right now gives you switchability. So it's not like they're really losing too much.
Yeah.
By quote unquote downsizing.
Yeah. You are listening to the Spoken Truth podcast on YouTube as we prepare you for game 3 of the NBA Finals, which is less than 45 minutes away. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube page and our Spotify account. All you gotta do is type in Spoken Truth podcast in your search engine. As we continue our Boston Celtics coverage of the NBA Finals, well, their portion, I might add, I wanted to touch on Boston's ability to kind of switch per se from on the Warriors. So, what do we think Boston defensive mindset needs to be going into Game 3?
I feel like the two main things that I would say is limiting the Warriors from getting out in transition. That's where I feel like they're getting a lot of their good looks, a lot of their wide open looks, not only at the rim, but driving and getting open looks from deep. But then also I feel like the pick and roll coverage has been, it's been up and down through these first 2 games, a lot of bad. I feel like, we talked about it in game 1 and then after game 2, especially in that third quarter where Horford and Tice got caught. I believe it was on back-to-back Steph Curry threes. You got to be able to cut out those type of mistakes. I feel like, with Tice hanging that far back, or with Horford, I know they're doing different things, trying to bring a help defender off from the side and stuff like that. But just, I feel like no drop coverage is going to work against Steph Curry. Unless you bring it all the way up to, the level of the screen, Tunde, like you've been talking about. But, I wanted to get your guys' take. Do you think it's time? I know that the Celtics are one of the least teams in the league that like to blitz, but do you think at least, at times, do you think they should blitz, maybe in the third quarter or maybe in the second half? And
they need to blitz, trap, they need to double, they need to do whatever they need to do on Steph Curry. You cannot continue to play Steph Curry one-on-one. I know you guys are number 1 in defense. I know you guys pride yourself on the defensive end. But Steph Curry will continue to obliterate this entire Celtics team if they do not switch up their defensive coverages. I don't know how that looked like from a standpoint from their perspective, but Steph Curry's put to bed this notion that Marcus Smart can guard him. Marcus Smart cannot guard Steph Curry.
I don't know if that was ever a notion, though.
I mean, a lot of people have said that. I think Steph Curry's put that to bed.
I don't really think so. It's tough, right? I think a lot of what we're getting is like the way that the Celtics choose to play. And I think you guys heard me say this before game one, but like I was concerned about I was a bit concerned even with me picking the Celtics about like the way Boston likes to and prefers to play pick and roll defense, just because it's a recipe for giving up pull-up threes. And I think we've seen in this series, they've gone on to give up a lot of pull-up threes to not just Steph, but, Jordan Poole's knocked down a couple. And consequently, one of the reasons I was like, I'm worried about it, but ultimately the Warriors don't like to run a lot of pick and roll. Game 2, the Warriors were like, fuck all that motion shit. Come set this ball screen. They just kept running pick and roll, and they were able to continuously get good looks out of it.
And why are the Celtics I don't get it. Like, that Steph has unlimited range. He's continuing to push your defense back, and you continue to backpedal, and you're leaving him wide open. Like, I'm not understanding why do you guys, not only are you sagging off of him, but you guys are literally playing. Honestly, you're playing one of the worst defensive coverages that I've ever seen on Steph Curry. You're allowing him to get too much space and too much room.
So the idea behind what they want to do is usually the big is in a drop, or you see them tinker with it with different guys. So like Horford tends to be at the level of the screen more, but the big is either drop or at the level of the screen, and then you've got whoever the person is guarding the ball. They're supposed to be going over the screen. So what they're trying to do is dissuade that pull-up three by going over the screen. The issue with that, though, and this is what concerned me with the pull-up three specifically, is that there's like with Steph Curry, there's no room for error from that person going over the screen. Because if you so much as get like brushed by the screen at all, the screen touches you, he's just gonna shoot the ball. Even if the screen doesn't touch you, he might shoot the ball anyway because he really doesn't need much space to get the shot off.
But isn't that a defensive breakdown? Like, why are the Celtics? Why are the players on the Celtics are not calling out those screens or picks? Like, you should be able to know that is coming. I should be able to fight through it, whatever I have to do to get back to my man. Instead, I'm allowing them to set the screen, and that's leaving Steph Curry. He doesn't need much room. That's leaving him open to shoot. So I think it's a lack of communication right now from Boston on that aspect.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is like it's not even really like a lack of communication so much as it's like Steph Curry, a great guard, so he's great at like it's a little thing, and sometimes you can't see it, but like these guards, you set the screen up, you set guys up to run into it, or the angle you take off the screen makes it hard for them to, go one way or the other. If you go under the screen on Steph, it's a shot. If you go over the screen and it brushes you, it's a shot. Yeah. If Steph comes off the screen at an angle where you have no choice but to get under the screen or you're going to run smack into it, it's a shot. And either way, it's kind of the same result. So he's doing a really good job with that. You mentioned one-on-one basketball, Danny, how the Warriors are the Steph is getting to play one-on-one. I would actually argue that the Celtics need to make him play more one-on-one. And it's part of why I'm thinking like we see them go small, and we see that change tonight. I think that they're going to have to, if the Warriors are going to try to run more pick and roll, just switch the screen. Just switch the screen.
I think that works to their advantage if Steph's playing one-on-one.
I don't know that it works to their advantage because, guarding Steph one-on-one is hell. But I think that it's a matter of when you get to these rounds and you have teams as good as these offensively on both ends, it's a matter of what you're willing to live with. And I think that if Steph Curry scores 40 points because he's cooking everybody on step backs from 35 feet, you shake his hand and you go on with it. But I think that's what you'll have to live with, as opposed to him shooting pull-up threes in rhythm. I think off pick and roll. I don't think that's what you want.
Chaz, real quick, your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, in the last 2 games, I think they have like 65 or something pick and rolls. They're averaging well over a point per pick and roll. So, I mean, if they continue at that efficiency and they're running it as much as they are, I feel like the Celtics don't have much of a chance unless they do something drastically different. I mean, I think we did see a lot more switches in that game 2 than we did in game 1. In that game 1, it seemed like they got caught in that drop coverage even more than in game 2. But then, I feel like the switching is better, but I don't know that it's going to do enough to win this series. I feel like at times they are going to have to throw in those blitzes. I know Ime Udoka doesn't really like to do it because I believe, that the Warriors average more points when you do blitz them because Steph is able to get the ball out so quick, and then Draymond's the one that's getting good looks, easy looks for other guys when they're going, 4-on-3. But I don't know. I just feel like if Curry is cooking, you gotta do something to force the ball out of his hands, at least at times. I mean, you can't allow them to blow out, another third quarter like they did with Steph just stepping in, off a screen into wide open threes. You can't allow that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sticking with you, Chaz, on this next topic. And we all know that the Warriors explode in the third quarters. They've been doing it for many years. You could make an argument that team is the 31st team in the league, the way they play in the third quarter. Because I don't know what it is about them going into halftime and then coming out and then time for the third quarter. It's a switch that just happens. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they check their Twitter mentions or whatever, but they just play different in the third quarter. How do Boston withstand those third quarters? Because we know they're coming. What does Boston have to do to withstand those third quarters onslaughts from the Warriors?
Yeah, I think the main thing is to limit turnovers. We saw them get like 30+% of their points in that game 2 win from off turnovers from the Celtics. I don't know how many of that came in the third quarter, but it seems like, in both these games, the Celtics have been a little more sloppy in that third quarter than they were in the first 2. You can't continue to do that because the Warriors will take advantage of it. They did in game 1, even though it didn't turn into a win. And then in game 2, I mean, the game was over by the end of that third quarter. So if something happens like that tonight, then it could be a home loss and you could be right back down 2-1. I feel like the main thing for them is to limit those turnovers. There's a bunch of other things that they have to do as well, but I feel like that has to be the key coming out of the locker room.
Tunde, you're on mute.
Oh, I know. I got you. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think Chaz hit the nail on the head. A lot of it is turnovers and shots that are and missed shots and bad shots that are essentially turnovers.
Right.
They all kind of allow the same thing, which is for the Warriors to push and get in transition. For all the consternation that people are having with ball screens, and it's well deserved. I think like the Celtics are just like they're really tough to score on in the half court, and any possession where the Celtics can get set up defensively, I think you gotta go in. They'll go into that feeling like they've got a real good chance to get a stop. Mm-hmm. The issue is when you have live ball turnovers and some of those aforementioned bad possessions that allow for run-ups, they don't get to do that. And the Warriors have been able to be, really efficient in transition and semi-transition. So I think that's where a lot of the third quarter runs have been in both games. So it's a matter of limiting those opportunities for them. And if you limit those opportunities for them, they're gonna give themselves a much better chance to solve some of the issues that we've seen for them, in this series. I will say though, it's a 1-1 series. You guys have heard me say this before, but these playoff series are they're long. There's lots of ebbs and flows,
adjustments
to make. No matter what happens tonight, there's going to be a lot more basketball in this series, and that goes for both teams. So nobody's panicking after tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I do think, to me, I do think Boston needs to win a little more than Golden State. Just because the way that they perform at home, it really has nothing to do with the finals itself. I think they need a great home performance in order for them to get some momentum going. to get Jayson Tatum going. Because right now, again, me and Chas talked about earlier, he played an okay first game. He was doing everything but really scoring. Game 2, he was scoring okay, but everything else was subpar at best. So he needs to put he needs to put everything together and have a complete game, which I think he will in game 3. But I do think this game matters a little bit more to the Celtics than it does the Warriors, because I think it's a psychological advantage to Boston if they were able to win this game, because they don't particularly play well at home, and we all know this. But real quick, Chaz, I wanted to get your best closing lineup for Boston.
For Boston, yeah, we kind of talked about it earlier. I think, with Robert Williams being impacted the way he is, I would say it's probably some variation of going small, where you go with, Smart, Brown, Tatum, Horford. And then if they're playing like they are in game 1 and game 2, it's probably Derek White. I think he gives you, the offense that somebody like Grant Williams does, but then he's also somebody that can guard Stephen Curry pretty well. I thought he did a pretty good job, in that second half of game 1. So I feel like it's probably Derek White to this point. But, for Udoka, I feel like it's kind of a game-to-game situation. I mean, if Grant Williams is knocking down shots like he was in game 7 against Milwaukee, then he obviously has to be in that lineup. But I feel like it's one of those bench guys. I mean, I would love for it to be Robert Williams. I think that's when this team was at their best during the season, but he can't play like that right now. So I would probably lean towards Derek White.
Tunde, best closing lineup for Boston.
I mean, I would say it's a lot of what Chaz said. It's probably not going to have Robert Williams in it as it stands right now. So you're probably looking at something like Smart, Tatum, Brown, Horford, Grant Williams, Al Horford. And then depending on what things look like with Derek White, you maybe go extra small and like have Smart and have like Smart and Derek White in there, and then maybe you take out Grant Williams and you just have Al Horford as the lone true big in there. But I think it'll end up looking something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're 3 for 3 here. I agree with almost everything that Chaz said. I do think that Boston playing small is the right thing to do in this instinct, but I also, as I said earlier, I think they have the decisive advantage if they're playing big. But the problem is that the Warriors do so, they draw your bigs out. And right now, I don't think Robert Williams, he can be able to come out to that 3-point line and, basically compete with the Stephs in the Jordan Poole, because he's not 100%. So I do think right now them going small is kind of their best scenario in order to compete with that small ball Warriors team. You are listening to the Spoken Truth podcast on YouTube. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and our Spotify account. You can type in the Spoken Truth podcast in your search engine or both platforms. We are less than 30 minutes away of Game 3 of the NBA Finals featuring the Golden State Warriors and the Boston Celtics. And now it's time to talk about the Golden State Warriors. Klay Thompson has been a highly talked about commodity in the last 2 games. He hasn't played particularly well in these NBA Finals. 11 points in game 2, I believe, 4 for 19. Game 1, he had 15 points on 6 for 14 shooting. What do the Warriors have to do to get Klay Thompson out of this shooting slump per se? Chaz?
I don't know. I mean, do you guys feel like they have to do that? I feel like you don't want to force it. You don't want to start having to call too much.
He's forcing it, though.
Yeah, I know.
I believe he's forcing.
Yeah, so I don't think it would be better to tell him to go force it. Or even Steve Kerr said that he noticed that Klay was pressing and that he just needs to relax a little bit. And I don't know, like I don't necessarily think they need to game plan and say Klay needs to go out there and get this many shots. He just needs to continue to do what he does best instead of forcing it. If he feels like he can knock down a shot, I'm not saying pass it up, but just make the right decision. Just make the right read. And I don't know if he's been doing that through these first 2 games.
I mean, Clay is always taking crazy shots though. Like this is
Yeah, but
this
he's
is
only
not-
making like 10% of them.
Yeah, I'm just saying he's inefficient while doing it right now. So it doesn't help the team, especially when you're in the NBA finals, to just jack up shots at this particular time. I get trying to find a rhythm, but again, as I said in game 2 pre-show, like there's a way that you do that without being a detriment to your team. And I'm not saying that he is, but I'm saying that if you're going to continue to take those shots, they're eventually going to hurt the Warriors at the end of the day.
I mean, yes and no. I don't disagree. I don't disagree that a few of them, it's like, oh man, that's a tough one. But like, again,
A lot of them are tough ones.
no, I don't disagree.
A lot of them are tough ones.
I think I don't think my feelings on this have really changed since the last time we had this discussion.
I don't think mine's either. I've said game 2 that he was taking bad shots. I'm going to continue to say he's taking bad shots. He's pressing. He's trying to I get what he's trying to do. I mean, he hasn't done this in 2+ years. I get what he's trying to do, but it's not helping. It's not helping the Warriors at the end of the day.
For what it's worth, how many times have you seen Klay Thompson take those shots and have huge games where, it was like the game he had against the Lakers where he scores 43 points on 4 dribbles, the one against the Pacers where he scores 60 points on 11 dribbles. Like the shots that he's taking, everybody's like,
but what you said though. Listen to what you just said though. Listen to what you just said.
I heard what I said.
11 dribbles, 4 dribbles. They're forcing Klay Thompson to dribble the ball like he's never done before. They're forcing him to play a different style that he's not used to playing.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that either because, I mean, Klay Thompson has shown the ability to make shots off the dribble. It's not a Steph Curry
I'm not saying that.
It's not a Steph Curry thing where he passed the rock, and he's hitting people with all these different moves, but he's effectively able to take a sidestep dribble, shoot the ball, or shoot a pull-up, or bump into somebody, be physical, hit a fadeaway, and he's shown the ability to do that consistently. I think with somebody like that, like it's like we say all the time, like it's a make or miss league. And right now he's missing shots, so people are just kind of freaking out. Like I think from just a pure percentage perspective, he's gonna be fine. These are gonna start going down. There's no need to panic. That's how I'm looking at it. This is, you heard me say it last time, second greatest shooter ever. I'm gonna trust him to make shots. That's what he's out there for.
I wouldn't say I'm panicking. I wouldn't say panicking. I would say that I just need him to take better quality shots than what he's taken so far. I've never seen Klay Thompson. I mean, granted, he's only been back half a season right now, but Boston is forcing him to do things that he's never done before. Klay Thompson has. I've watched almost every single Warriors game. I've never seen Klay Thompson dribble as much as he's dribbled in this NBA Finals. I've never seen him dribble as much as he has driven. He's dribbled in 2 games. They're forcing him to do things he's not used to doing. And that's causing him to be off rhythm. That's causing him to take ill-advised threes. That's causing him to take shots that he normally would not take if he wasn't in rhythm. Now, those shots are great if you're in rhythm, in the flow of the game. But Klay Thompson hasn't been in the flow of the game in almost 3 series now. He had a great game 5 against Memphis. He had a great game. Against Dallas. He had a great game 6 against Memphis. But other than that, this is the Klay Thompson we've seen throughout this entire playoffs. He has 2 anomaly games, and other than that, he hasn't played great.
Josh? Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm panicked either if I'm the Warriors, especially since you have somebody like Jordan Poole, that does a lot of the same stuff, and you're kind of only looking for one of them to break out every game. But that game 5 against Dallas is the only one of Klay's last 7 games that he even scored over 20 points. I mean, for him to be shooting under 30%, under 25% from 3 in the finals, I mean, I'm not panicking, but I feel like it definitely has to be a concern at this point.
Absolutely. You've mentioned Jordan Poole and his emergence that he's had this entire regular season. He struggled a little bit in his playoffs. We've seen kind of his field goal percentage, his 3-point percentage, a lot of that go down in these playoffs. Game 2 was a welcoming sight. He scored 17 points on 6 from 14 shooting. What are we expecting from Jordan Poole in this game 3? And can we expect similar numbers scoring wise for the rest of this series.
Somebody on Twitter said Jordan Poole hoop like it's nothing but baddies in the crowd. So I expect nothing more or nothing less than that. I think Jordan Poole will continue to hoop like he saw some baddies in the crowd and is trying to impress them. Step back threes for everyone. He's gonna put his shots up. They're gonna need his shot making off the dribble. And gonna need his scoring punch. I expect him to continue to score the ball, but that's mostly because I think you guys have heard me say this before, but like I think that Jordan Poole is damn near a max level player in the NBA, just from what I think his potential is, and that there's pretty much no amount of money I wouldn't give him on his next contract. Oof. If he wanted 5% of the concessions, I see the defensive issues. I'm well aware of them. I think it's part of why Boston will win the series. If Jordan Poole wanted like 3% of the concession stands for the season, I'd give him that shit.
I don't know about all that.
That man is cold.
I mean, he is on the offensive end, but I do think it's still a lot of growth. He has a lot of growth to do. I think he can get better over time, but I'm not going to necessarily. I'm not going to throw Steph Curry digits at him right now. I think he has to show that he can do this on a consistent basis, not just a one year type thing. He has to show a little longevity. I do think he's going to get that max though from the Warriors. I think they're going to max him out because obviously I think they see something in him. But to say 3% of your concessions, I don't know about all that now.
Hey man, everybody thinks I'm crazy until the shit I say happens. Everybody thought I was
no crazy. Concession stand profits.
Everybody thought I was crazy when I said that the Celtics were a finals team when they were the 8th seed until the Celtics became a finals team. Everybody thought I was crazy when I said that I thought Dallas was a legit finals contender until they beat Phoenix. And everybody is going to think I'm crazy.
Well, you were crazy on the Mavericks part. Yeah,
I wasn't really crazy. I think I was more.
That was more of a choke than a Mavericks victory. You were completely wrong.
Did they win?
I'm not going to say you completely.
He got the pick right at least.
I'm not going to say you're completely wrong. I'm not going to say you're completely wrong against the Mavericks. I'm just going to say that was more of a choke on Phoenix than it was a Mavericks winning. But again, like
they won the game. What is that?
A 64-win team who I've never believed in, who I didn't have going to the finals anyways. They choked. I mean, Chaz was the only one that was really high on them, and I'm still going to give him flack to this day about picking them to win a championship. But
I mean, the fact that Phoenix lost doesn't mean that they weren't a great team.
No, I'm just saying. I'm not saying that they weren't a great team. I'm saying they weren't a championship level team like people thought they were. Just because you make it to the finals doesn't mean you're a championship level team. To me, like there could be obstacles of the reason why you got to the finals, and I'm not going to use that as any excuse of how Phoenix got to the finals that year they did. I mean, if LeBron and them were healthy, I would have picked the Lakers.
Everybody was hurt.
But that's
the first round in 5 if Anthony Davis is healthy.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm not going to use that. But all I'm saying is
I am, but
yeah, because you're a Lakers fan. But
I'm a Pistons fan. I'm also somebody who can analyze basketball at a high level. In the games in that series where Anthony Davis was healthy, he averaged like 35 points, and they had nobody to handle it.
We haven't talked about Anthony Davis in so long. Here we go.
It's not an accident. It's not an accident that they got to the finals and they had no answers for Giannis, like scheme-wise, personnel-wise, anything. It's a similar kind of issue where that team struggles with size and athleticism, and when you have players that combine the two, there's just not much that they can offer there from a defensive perspective.
Gotcha.
In fairness, there's not much that most players or teams can offer from a defensive perspective for somebody like Giannis. So it's not a problem that's that they share, that they have individually, but it's a problem.
Yeah. Trying to stir, get back on topic here. Jordan Poole, Chaz. Because Tunde took us on a rant. He took us. We went to Kings Island with Tunde right now. He went from the Mavericks to the Lakers.
I'm just gonna drink.
We got on the Suns. Then he went back to Milwaukee. Now he at Boston right now. This was the man that said there was 8 legit teams in the East that could have won the championship this year. He was right. He was right about 4 of them, I would say. Chaz, Jordan Poole. He's angry right now. Jordan Poole, Chaz.
Yeah.
What do you expect for him to contribute in game 3 and going forward in the series?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for the Warriors' sake, he has to be close to what he was in that second half. I mean, in that game 1 and then most of that first half in game 2, I feel like he wasn't very, productive. Really got going in that third quarter. And then, that was about enough. I think you said he was 6 of 14 for 17 points. I mean, that's pretty good. If he was able to do that, I feel like on a consistent basis, then it would be really helpful for the Warriors' case. But I mean, I don't know that, with how Poole has been playing the last several weeks, I don't know that if we can expect that on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think for what you guys see, me and Tunde we don't disagree, often. But we do agree that we do see something in Jordan Poole that I do think he's a max level player, and I do think the Warriors will give him the max. But I do think there needs to be a longevity of the things that he's able to do, and his game needs to be transferable from year to year. I think a pressure from these NBA finalists, he's only 20 years old, has, kind of got him routed a little bit. But we saw what he's able to do in spurts in game 2. So if he can do that at a consistent basis, I feel even more better about my pick of the Warriors winning this thing at 7. You are listening to the Spoken Truth podcast on YouTube. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and our Spotify. All you gotta do is type in Spoken Truth podcast in your search engine.
I don't think Jordan Poole is going to forget how to shoot.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. The defense needs to. He doesn't have to be a great defender. I'm not expecting him to make an all defensive team, but he needs to improve vastly in that defensive category. Kind of like how Steph Curry over the years has improved on that defensive end. He's no longer a slouch on the defense. He's there, like he's present, like he can maneuver, he can guard a little bit, he can get after the ball. So I expect that kind of improvement from Jordan Poole.
I think Steph has been an underrated defender for
absolutely for years.
7 years now.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it is just that he played next to a bunch of all defense guys, so teams went at him because the other options were Prime Clay, Iggy, Draymond, and nobody's trying to do any of that shit. Or Harrison Barnes, who's 6'8" with length and athleticism. So they went at the 6'3" guy, who had less length and was less explosive, maybe a little bit less explosive physically. He was the smallest one. It wasn't that he was bad, it's just that he was worse than the others on his team. And so people got those two things confused.
Let's go, Chaz. What's up, guys? You are listening to the Spoken Truth podcast as we count down the minutes into game 3 of the NBA Finals featuring the Golden State Warriors and the Boston Celtics. Now, we wanted to stay with the Warriors, and we want to talk a little bit about Gary Payton II. His return to the Golden State Warriors has provided, I think, a spark on the defensive end. We all know what happened in that Memphis series when he got injured. Chaz, I wanted to start with you. How does GP2 defensive ability affect Boston in this series?
Yeah, I thought he was able to come in that game 2 and have an immediate impact, especially on the defensive end, like you mentioned. His ability to defend bigger guys. I mean, he was out there for Tatum for stretches. And he defended Horford even for stretches too. So I mean, for his ability to defend guys that are inches taller than him, and Horford was trying to back him down at times, and Payton wasn't giving up much room, and then he was also doing a good job of contesting on the shot. So I feel like on that end, he's one of their better players, and he's going to have to be out there. He's going to have to make an impact in this series. And then anything that he gives you on the other end, which I think he had 7 points, 3 assists. I mean, if he's doing that, on a consistent basis, then it's a much needed help, especially compared to, I think he took a lot of those Iguodala minutes from that game 1. And I thought it was a big boost to get what they did out of Payton.
Tunde?
Yeah, I mean, not much to add. GP2 was a big boost for them. I think if he's going to play, it's got to be a thing where the Celtics make them pay for having him on the floor by shrinking the court a little bit. You guys might have heard me mention this before, but I think you'll want to, as much as you can, match up Robert Williams' minutes with GP2's minutes, and then that's where you put him when he is going to be on the floor. But game 2, obviously the Warriors won the GP2 minutes pretty handily, and he
You're lucky you got half a cheek.
Big boon for them. I got what?
You got half a cheek. Every time you turn your head to like the right, half of your cheek like disappears.
Oh, is it the sun?
I don't know what it is.
This gorgeous lighting that I've got over here. And this beautiful simulation.
Not the pun. He hit the light skin pose.
I hit y'all with the
I gotta get that screenshot later.
I might need that screenshot.
I forgot how old we are, man. I haven't said that in so long, man. It's crazy.
I'm on TikTok, something crazy. It's a huge time suck.
Absolutely. We know how big of a presence GP2 is on the defensive end. Draymond Green is the fuel for this Golden State Warriors team. You can say they go as far as he go, but it's really a tandem of him and Steph. When he brings that roughness, that versatility, he brings all of that to the table, like he did in game 2, coming right out of the gate. How does that affect the outcome of this series? But focusing on game 3, how does Draymond coming out with that same mindset help the Warriors in game 3, Chaz?
Yeah, I thought he might have been the biggest difference, especially in that first quarter in game 2. He came out with, such great energy, physicality. If that's what you want to call it, you can call it bullying people, whatever. But he tied
Draymond being Draymond.
Yeah, exactly. He tied up Horford, on the first possession. He got a deflection soon after that. He was just mixed up in everything. Throughout the game. I think he only took like 3 shots. I think he took 12 in that game 1. So, him
9
doing
points
a lot
in game 2.
Yeah. So, him doing a lot of the stuff that he's good at and not forcing it in other areas, that's exactly what you want Draymond doing. And, after a loss, I feel like they needed him to come out with, that type of toughness.
Tunde?
Yeah, that's one way to describe it. And to be clear, he was very good in game 2. Mm-hmm. The energy thing, though, Chaz, you and I watched the early part of that game together, and I don't know. Do you remember?
Yeah, y'all watched it without me. That's crazy.
You hopped on
at work, right?
I know.
You made that. That was your choice. What the fuck? What do you remember me saying when Draymond picked up that first tech?
Yeah, that he was going to let loose. That he knew he had the room to do pretty much whatever he wanted from that point on.
Absolutely. I said that yesterday. I said he got that first tag. He know that they're not going to kick him out. He's going to let loose. Yeah.
When it's happened before, the 2018 game 2 of the 2018 or I said game 2, sorry, game 1 of the 2018 Western Conference Finals is a great example. I remember it off the top of my head because he was wilding in that game. He got a tech early in the game for pushing James Harden after scoring on him for no real reason within the first few minutes of the game. And then he just, like you said, Chaz, whenever Draymond gets an early tech in a big game like this, he knows he's not going to get ejected for, he's not going to get ejected for like words or language. He's pretty much got free reign to do whatever. Mm-hmm. And he does whatever. You can say whatever you want to say about, him contesting a shot, but like, or whatever, but like, it's a pattern. It's not accidental. He could have contested that Jaylen Brown 3 without treating old boy like an ottoman afterwards. That was crazy. He put his legs on his head. Fuck off me. I'd had the same reaction.
Yeah. Do you think that was worthy of a tech?
Not in that situation. Like, I'm fine with him not getting ejected, to be clear.
Probably in the regular season, you may get a tech, but these are NBA finals.
Right. Yeah. He would have gotten it. He would have totally gotten ejected.
Yeah, and as we said, like, I mean, me and Tunde pointed out, as I said yesterday, that after he got that first tag, it's going to take a lot for him to get that second one. They're not going to make that same mistake with throwing Draymond Green out of a game, basically altering an NBA Finals that year. They're not going to make. Go ahead.
You don't think that? I mean, especially now that after Draymond did, I mean, he called it out, and he said it himself, like he knows after he gets that first one. You don't think somebody like Scott Foster or somebody else isn't going to be like, I'm going to
Scott Foster though. We know he's petty.
He's there tonight.
Yeah, so he I don't know. I mean, it really depends. I think it really depends on the antics. I think actually, and this might sound terrible, but it's so true in today's game. I think if the Celtics sold it a little better, he would have got kicked out of game too. If they sold, what he was doing to them a little better, he probably would have got ejected. If Jaylen Brown blew it a little bit more out of proportion than he did when that happened, the altercation happened, I think they would have both got technical fouls, and then Draymond would have been ejected. I think at that point he would have took one for the team, and Draymond's gone. So I mean, that's the heart and the soul. So I think it's ways that they could have actually antagonized Draymond a little bit more, if that makes sense.
You're probably right. If Jaylen Brown got up and pushed him, if they probably would have.
Draymond definitely would have responded, and he would have definitely. There would definitely been a double technical foul.
Yeah, I don't think Jaylen Brown wanted to put himself in the position where he might get ejected, he might get a fine, suspension. Like, you never know when you get in those type of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. We are running against the time here, guys, as we are 5 minutes away from Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Closing lineups for the Golden State Warriors. Chas?
See, this one is tough because they're so deep. Obviously it has to be Curry, Wiggins, and Draymond. I feel like those are the ones that absolutely have to be on the court. But then, there's probably 4 or 5 guys that could potentially fill in those last 2 spots. I feel like somebody like you probably have to have obviously either Clay or Poole closing in these games because of defensive issues. You're probably not going to have both. So it's probably one of those 2. And then that 5th spot, I was thinking about this earlier. It might end up being somebody like, Gary Payton II. It might end up being Otto Porter. Even Kevon Looney, it could be any of those 3 guys. So out of that, I think I just named like 8 guys, which is, obviously the 5 that they're going to finish with. But, just like the Celtics, it's going to be a game-by-game thing, I feel like.
Sunday, closing lineups for the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, so like Chaz said, it's tough. It really depends on what's going on a nightly basis, I think. I think you kind of start with the fact that that Steph, Clay, and Andrew Wiggins will be in there. And so you start with those 3, right? Mm-hmm. And from then on, it depends on what look you're trying to give. You want, I think, like, in an ideal world, you play, we never really did come up with a good nickname for the lineup, 3G or
I literally was about to ask y'all. If they're going small, if Boston's going small, if I'm the Warriors, do I play the Sun Def lineup?
See, ideally you would be able to, but that means Jordan Poole got to guard somebody, and I don't really think you're confident in that. Because if they're going small, like he's gonna be guarding somebody with a perimeter skill set who's probably just they're gonna attack him off the dribble. And I say somebody, but like it's a closing lineup, it'll be Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown. Mm-hmm. You don't really want that. So like it's tough. You might have to shove Jordan Poole for some of these to finish off some of these games if they're close. Mm-hmm. And you might, like Chaz mentioned, you might be looking at GP2 or Otto Porter. And then from there, again, I think ideally, like you want to play Draymond. The issue is, like you saw in game 1, against this defense, it will not work with multiple non-scoring threats on the floor. So like you're playing GP2, you probably can't really play. You don't feel great about playing GP2 and Draymond or Looney. So like you probably got to pick one of those 3 guys, and I guess you're going to pick Draymond. So like this is all just kind of talking through how the Warriors coaching staff is probably going to have to look at this and the conclusion there, how they come to this conclusion.
And then like 40 guys, Charles.
But yeah, exactly. The same thing as Chaz. I like named a million people. If I had to guess for this series, best closing lineup is probably going to look something like Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Otto Porter, Draymond.
Okay.
Otto Porter, really? Okay.
Otto Porter, yeah.
I'm okay with that because I think Otto Porter has the ability to play the defense, but also he's a threat from the perimeter. Did you say GP2?
No.
No, he didn't say GP2.
I mentioned him, but I was saying it for the context of like you want him out there, but it's also going to be tough to play him with Draymond or Looney at the same time.
I agree with that. But I'm still going to go with, obviously, I'm going to go with the Splash Brothers and Draymond at your big three. I'm going to say Jordan Poole is going to come alive. I think he's going to have a good game. I think they go the sudden death route at some point in this game. I'm not going to say it's going to start it. I'm not going to say it's going to close it. But I think they go with that sudden death lineup for an extended period of time in this game to see if it works, especially if Boston continues to go small and try to match up small ball with the Warriors, because they cannot match up with them if they're going small. And that's in my opinion. I do think someone like a Looney or a GP2 could benefit being in that lineup with Wiggins, Clay, Steph, and Poole because of their ability to play defense. Notice I didn't mention Draymond. So I think that those two offer more offense than Draymond will ever offer when it comes to the closing lineup. And to me, Steve Kerr needs to pay attention to that. Because although Draymond Green, he's going to make every play other than score, he's going to play defense, he's going to make the right pass, he's going to rebound, he's going to assist. If it comes down to a point in time where I need to make a bucket, I may need to consider going with Otto Porter, Jordan Poole, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, going super small in order for us to have some type of offensive firepower.
I don't know if that team could hold up on the defensive end, though.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I agree. But it's going to be tough. I think you sacrifice the defense because of the lethalness and the potential lethalness of the offense. So I think at some point in time, it may come to that. I don't think tonight it will. I think tonight is going to be tough. It's going to be a back and forth game. And we're going to get into picks right here in a second. But I think this is going to be a game, probably the closest game we've seen in these NBA finals to date. Tunde, who do you have winning game 3?
Oh man, I've got the Boston Celtics winning tonight. I think we get a bounce back. I think we get better defense from them. I think we get slightly fewer turnovers, and they turn down the fuck around and find out just enough to pull out a very, very good basketball game tonight. I have them getting a lot of spacing and some quality shooting from the likes of Grant Williams, Al Horford. I think Peyton Pritchard is going to be, I don't want to say an X factor, but he's giving them really good minutes in this series, being able to slide his speed and guard. And I legit don't think Peyton Pritchard has missed a corner 3 in like 4 months.
Who's crazy from the corner 3?
And corner specialist badge is equipped.
Player of the game. Who's player of the game?
Who's player of the game?
Yep.
And I'm gonna go with Jayson Tatum. I don't understand. Like I think right now, I know I'm seeing these little Finals MVP leaderboards. I think it's hilarious that we have Finals MVP leaderboards in the first place.
Especially after 2 games.
After 2 games, no, I don't see that.
What are we doing?
These series swift so much.
It's silly. Yeah. Jayson Tatum is number 2 for me on the Finals MVP leaderboard, though. Like he's played really good defense. He's passing the shit out of the ball. We saw, again, sidestep threes for everybody in game 2. I expect more of that tonight. I think we get an all-around brilliant game from him, and the Boston Celtics go up 2-1 in this series.
Chaz, who wins game 3?
I'm gonna go with Boston too. I think they take the 2-1 series lead. I think it's a good one. They're 3.5-point favorites, I believe. So, I'm expecting a relatively close game. I think it could go either way, but I'm just gonna say Boston gets this one at home. As for a player of the game, I'd probably lean Jayson Tatum too, just because I think he's going to go for those, one of those type of 30-point, six assist type of games. But I'll say Marcus Smart, because I feel like he needs to have a bounce back performance. I mean, after going for 2 points, I think he was 0 for 3 from 3, and he had like 4 fouls, 5 turnovers. I mean, he was pretty bad all night in that game too. I feel like he's going to have a bounce back game tonight, and Boston gets a close win.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3 for 3 here. I'm going to go Boston. I think Boston has to win tonight. I'm not calling it a must win. I think Boston has the home crowd. They're back. They hasn't played particularly well at home throughout this entire playoffs. We all know that. I think Jayson Tatum has a explosive game tonight. I see him going anywhere between 25 to 30 points. Almost a triple double, as I said earlier, Chaz. 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and about 8 or 9 rebounds. I see him having a big game. I will say this though. I don't like to say must wins. I don't want to consider this a must win. But I do think if Boston somehow loses this game, they're not beating Golden State Warriors 3 of the next 4 games. Like they're not beating Golden State 3 of the next 4 games. I'm not calling it a must win. I'm not saying that they must. Anything can happen. But I'm just saying, from me looking at the game, studying the game, me trying to analyze the game now, I don't see them beating Golden State 3 out of 4. I just don't see it. I don't think neither team has lost back-to-back games. I don't think neither team has lost back-to-back games in this playoffs.
Nope.
So history says Boston should win this game. So I think if Boston loses this game, I'm not saying it might not go the distance. I'm not saying it's not going to go past 6. It's still going to go 7 in my opinion. But I think Boston cannot beat Golden State Warriors 3 out of the next 4 games if they lose this game. So that means Golden State is going to win the title, in my estimation, if they lose this game.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And, I think it would be possible for them to lose tonight and then bounce back, in a couple nights and tie it up 2-2. But to win game 3 and then you don't have that pressure on you in game 4, I feel like would be huge for a younger Boston team that, like you said, they're 5-4 in their last 9 home games in these playoffs. So I feel like just to kind of get that off them tonight, it would be nice to get a win and go back up 2-1.
I think you're asking a lot from a young team to beat the Golden State Warriors 3 out of 4. I think you're asking a lot for them to do that and expand of a week at that point. I don't think they can do it. Again, I'm not going to say if they lose. I still think it goes the distance. I still think this thing goes 7 regardless of the outcome tonight. But you're not beating Golden State 3 out of 4. I don't see it happening. Not this year. I don't see it happening. I don't see Steph Curry losing a game 7 at home. This go round.
It had to happen before.
That's what I'm saying. I said this go round. I don't see him doing that again. I don't see Klay Thompson struggling the entire finals. Like I don't see it happening. I think if it goes to a 7, somebody's going to show up. So, but I'm not saying it can't happen because it can, but I just don't think Boston could beat them 3 out of 4. That's just a personal opinion. Like they haven't won. Neither team has lost back to back. So you expect Boston to win. You're not beating Golden State 3 out of 4. They haven't lost 3 out of 4 this entire season, I believe. Well, half of the season after Christmas, I believe. Well, playoffs because they did have a stretch of losing. They did.
Getting their ass whooped for a long stretch.
Yeah, they had a home. They had a stretch of losing. Yeah.
You remember all the panicked the morning shows. What's wrong with the Warriors? Nothing was wrong with them. Nothing was ever wrong with them.
I just think that's a tough ask for a young team. That's a tough ask to ask them to beat the Golden State 3 out of 4. Can they do it? Sure. Feasible? Sure. Will they? I don't know.
Remember when they blew Game 5 against Milwaukee, and then Jayson Tatum came back and had.
This is not Milwaukee, sir. This is not Milwaukee.
No. Let me finish.
Okay.
And then Jayson Tatum had 46 points in a road elimination game to send it to a Game 7.
Absolutely.
And then Grant Williams had the best scoring game of his NBA career, and they advanced to the next round.
Yeah.
Or when they blew Game 6 against Miami, came back and pulled out a road Game 7.
Not Miami either. Yeah.
You can say all of that stuff about the Warriors being an insurmountable challenge, all of that, but like we drop all of the X's and O's and we drop all of the analysis and we just we look at all of this other stuff and like this
Neither
is
one of those teams is Golden State.
that's fine. That's fine, but like more than almost any other team that I've seen that's gotten to this point, and partially because they made the road harder for themselves than it had to be. Let's be honest.
Yep.
This
Definitely.
Boston team is very clearly one that doesn't flinch at perceived challenges.
Yeah, and I'm not expecting them to. I'm not expecting them to flinch if they go down 2-1. What I'm saying is, this is not Milwaukee and this is not Miami. Like, so the things that you were able to do against those teams. First of all, I was never a believer in Miami to begin with. I picked them to win that series because I thought like they were going to prove me wrong. Obviously, they didn't. Milwaukee, obviously, they had the Chris Middleton injury. We're not going to use that as an excuse. They thoroughly outplayed Milwaukee in that series. This is a different animal. Not only is it the finals, this is a different beast. And neither one of those teams match up against the Warriors. So when you're asking them to say, when you're pointing to, oh, they came back on Miami, oh, they came back on Milwaukee, this is not good. That's not Golden State. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a different beast when you're talking about Miami and Golden State.
My point is that they're not going to be scared of shit.
No. I'm not accusing them to be scared. I don't think why should I didn't say they should be scared.
No, that's not what I think you said.
Okay.
I didn't think you were saying that they should be scared, they should be worried, or any of that. I'm just saying they're not gonna look at anything like, we're down 2-1, we can't win this series. I don't know, can we do this? They're gonna play these games and it's gonna be a war.
Yeah, absolutely.
And absolutely. It's gonna be that's just what it's gonna be. If they again, it goes back to the turnovers, but like if they get their half court defense set, you're not gonna have fun trying to score on them, no matter who you are.
Absolutely. Chaz, any last words on that topic or anything that we've discussed?
I did just want to mention that, one thing that we didn't talk about was I thought Draymond being on Jaylen Brown a lot in that game too was also something that really changed for the Warriors. And then it's interesting to see that he was back on Horford for that first possession and Clay was on Jaylen Brown and he knocked down a three. So I thought Draymond being on Jaylen Brown, taking away his, dribble penetration was a big reason that they won game two. So I kind of figured that Steve Kerr would keep him on Jaylen Brown to start this game as well, but I'm sure he'll spend a lot of time on him throughout.
Last take, Tunde? Anything?
Jayson Tatum loves swinging his arms to draw fouls. James Harden type beat. I love it.
Yeah, it looked like he hurt his shoulder on that one.
Yeah, it looks like he did.
His shoulder has been injured. If you guys have been seeing this, his shoulder's been injured for like a month. I wouldn't be surprised if he needs some kind of surgery after the season.
Yeah.
It reminds me of my shoulder right now. I just out here giving people.
Mine is actually mine is high key a bit messed up from.
Really, your rotator cuff?
I'm honestly not sure what I did. It might be from playing football. I think it's partially from playing football and partially from me sleeping on it wrong. I don't know how I slept on it so wrong that I couldn't lift my arm up the other day, but I couldn't. So
absolutely. Any last words, guys?
No, I think I'm good.
Let's watch some basketball.
Yeah.
Good stuff. If you have been listening to the Spoken Truth podcast on YouTube, if you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and our Spotify account. All you gotta do is type in Spoken Truth podcast in your search engine. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to us on our platforms. You can find me on Twitter at Danny Murphy Jr. 1.
You can follow me on Twitter at Chaz_post23.
And you can follow me on Twitter at King Tunde 25.
Peace.